Hello! We are on 120.
I thought it was Plan C, 220.
What? It's not Plan C. We can't use that anymore.
And finally, no. Number 1.
Number.
And B.
Class 120.
And finally.
What? Because we're still on the foundational thing of marriage, we're not going to go to class 200 until we are in the intermediate things of marriage. So we are still foundational. Talking.
And sometimes it's good to go back,
this is
even
the
if
class
you've been married
100s.
for a really long time.
Yep, class 100s.
Yeah.
And we're doing the Care Bear stare today. We both worked out. We're kind of tired, so just deal. Wow, leg day sucks. He's like,
anyway.
Okay. So what's 120? So we did talk about the scary question to ask 100, class 100, or the first time that we started doing this series was, do you want to be married?
That was 2 weeks ago.
That was 2 weeks ago. And then last week we talked about, do you know yourself? It's kind of important for you to know yourself because you cannot expect this person next to you that you've committed your life with to complete you. That Jerry Maguire phrase is stupid because you are complete in yourself. And this is a addition, not a completion thing.
That's
Just keep
good,
moving my hand in front of her. All right. So this is the nitty gritty. This would be falling in love with the process of marriage.
And that's way different than just falling in love with a person, because that's easy.
Oh, yeah.
That's very easy to do.
The process is hard.
When people say marriage is hard...
This is the process.
Yeah. Falling in love, finding that right person, being attracted to them, that's the easy part.
Oh, yeah. Having sex is easy, too.
We're a lot of people.
It is for me. And it could be for you. Let me introduce you to this new blue pill. Okay. So what is the process of marriage?
Well, you know how people say this is where I'm going to go with this, and I know you kind of have another standpoint on this, but not on this. But people say, "Hey, we've made it." You know that Shania Twain. You know, we've made it all these years, and well, does that mean one of you is dead?
I think you should sing that part.
So glad we made it.
Okay, stop singing. No.
But what did you make? Because unless
one of you is dead. You haven't
made it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That kind of really makes sense. I never thought of it until you said it that way. That's hilarious.
It really is, though, because I have thought about...
Did you make it down the aisle?
I've thought about
Did you make
parents.
a baby?
I've thought about people that
My
have...
parents. My mom.
Your mom and dad. I've thought about people that have lost a spouse either early or been married 50 years and lost a spouse. They made it.
Yeah.
They stood the test of time. They kept with their vows till death do you part. Only does that mean you've made it. And that, I mean... That might sound morbid, but that's really what you have promised to do.
And that's literally falling in love with the process of marriage. This
is to the end. It's not like, 20 years, we've made it. No, okay, you've made it 20 years.
Yeah.
But you haven't
Unless one of you die and don't kill your partner, you haven't made it.
Right. I don't think that counts. No. But the process
I want to finish this marriage thing.
Done. Fulfilled. But marriage isn't like I'm just gonna hang out with you until somebody better comes along. I'm just gonna hang out with
isn't
you
that
until
called dating?
I really
or
don't like you anymore, or I'm annoyed with
you,
or whatever. Falling in love with the process of marriage is loving arguments because you've learned about them more.
Loving conflict.
Loving conflict.
Loving resolution of
conflict.
Loving
resolution of
Understanding your partner's beliefs.
Yes.
And adjusting
love language.
Your beliefs to match. And I'm not saying you lose... It's just a combination
you're starting to figure them out.
You know, your parents during your birthday had this big party. And for my birthday, it was happy birthday.
Maybe if they remember to call you.
Kind of.
That kind of thing. I'm
right.
not saying that's the way.
You might get a present.
Two different things.
You might not.
Yeah.
And so on birthdays, she's all, we're going to have a party, especially with kids. We're going to spend $4,000 and buy blow-up tools and kill ourselves. Because this is what my parents did, and this is the best thing ever!
This means I have value.
And
this means I'm important. I want to show my kids they're important. And
the opposite person,
son,
I want to sit you down. I love you. Here's a knife that my grandfather gave me and his grandfather before him gave him.
No hoopla.
Happy birthday.
And I might be mad at that, and he might be mad at mine. Neither one is right or wrong.
Mine means way more.
It's figuring each other out. And that's what we mean by falling in love with the process of marriage. figuring out each other's little quirks and learning how to not necessarily tolerate or live with, but
it's really understanding
just understanding each other.
Where their value comes from and where my value comes from. It's really important. Just like we talked about the whole party thing. Because that gives her value. That was part of her family value thing. And when you come together and mine is completely opposite, or your partner's is completely opposite, there is immediate conflict.
And you might go through several years of those things before you actually figure out the root reason behind things.
What is the way?
And if you give up in a year or two, you haven't figured that out.
Which was part of the whole issue of time. A lot of couples, newly married couples, do not give each other enough time.
Patience and grace. Time,
and so we divorced with irreconcilable differences. Well, the difference was because you didn't give enough time to figure out how those differences help one another and complement one another. That's what they're there for.
And we're not saying, abusive relationships, if there's addictions, major issues that a person has brought up. We're not talking about
Disclaimer.
That. We're talking about, like you just said, irreconcilable differences.
Irreconcilable differences just means that you have not given each other enough time to figure out how your conflict, your values can complement one another rather than always fighting against one another. And that's really the crux of the process of marriage. You're going to have random arguments that don't mean anything and all of that. But when it comes down to bigger arguments such as birthdays and Christmas and who to spend Christmas with and all of that, that really comes down to the core value of a person. I have no idea where she's going.
You've left before I'm leaving.
So that is literally the process of marriage. So you're going to have some conflict, and to resolve that conflict, you have to go into how do you get value out of this conflict with one another, and have the weird conversation of, wow, my value in this really comes from how I was raised and how I was grown up and how I view myself. Doesn't mean that their value is completely wrong. It's just my value. And so dealing with a spouse that's insecure, now I'll point at myself as an insecure one, our value system is vastly different than a more mature spouse. So she has to have grace and understanding and,
Are you saying I'm the more mature spouse?
Yeah. And work out through that just because of my insecurities. And you might be switched. The stronger one has to deal with the insecurities of the lesser one in a very mature way.
Yeah.
Meaning, she doesn't give me security. She's not the source of my security, but she can help me through my insecurity. And that's a big thing.
It's huge.
I am a complete person by myself, and she is a complete person by herself. And I keep repeating that because it's really important when you're working with the process of marriage to understand that you are two separate people coming together. You are always two separate people. You're just trying to complement one another in the best way possible. And that's what the process of marriage is about. And that's why there's conflict. And if you don't ever resolve any of that conflict, you never become one. Because you can't resolve the conflict without winning. And sometimes no one wins. And it's okay.
This is the marriage win.
Yeah, this is the marriage win.
So I read this on Facebook earlier, and I thought about posting it on our marriage thing. I still might. I really, really liked this because I've talked to people who are like, why should I change for you? And the attitude of, that's just how I am, take it or leave it, is a sign of immaturity. As an adult, it's your responsibility to figure out which of your traits are toxic and are negatively impactful toward other people and the ones you love, your spouse. And eventually learn how to fix them. At some point, we all got to start making ourselves better individuals. If you truly believe you don't have to change anything about yourself, especially coming into marriage, even at the very least, the worst in you, and that people will just have to deal with, then I'm sorry, but you're still a child.
Wow.
I thought that really hit home. Because it doesn't mean you're changing your true values. It doesn't mean you're changing your personality. But if you think I can be as mean as I want or as bitchy as I want,
I do what I want.
You put up with me, you got to take me or leave me, hey, you married me this way, that's a sign of immaturity.
And ignorance.
You're not being considerate and kind. It's not about changing who you are. It's about being more considerate, loving, kind, and trying to identify those toxic and negative behaviors in you so that you can be more loving and your spouse can love you more and people are just want to be around you more.
Yeah. So fall in love with the process of being married and understand that it is a process. It isn't just a feeling. It's a choice. You wake up every day. This is the person I married. I love this person and I'm going to fall in love with the process. nothing that we've communicated in the first 3 videos of this has anything to do with how you feel. I wonder why. Because feelings are not facts.
Feelings are not facts?
Feelings are not facts.
All right, we love you guys. HaveAMarriage.com. We'll try to get some more videos up there. And you can follow us at HaveAMarriage on Twitter.
Podcast coming soon.
Yeah, all that kind of fun stuff. So we love you guys. Have a great week. And fall in love with the process of marriage all the time.
Yeah. Oh, and have sex.